Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Code Crafted. Today we are going to solve one of the issue, not actually issue, it is a kind of use case, and we would like to automate that. So use case is like an application or a user needs to run some set of the commands on the remote host machine, right? On a daily basis, on like whenever you run some tests, right, in your local machine, it needs to copy to the some remote host and execute those commands, get those results, copy to the local machine, or validate all those log files in your remote host machine and see that if all execution worked fine, right? So this is the kind of manual traditional way to do this activity. Can we have some tool which will help us to automate this, right? So Paramiko is for that. It is a Python library and it provides the method or expose some of the interfaces. By interacting with that, we can get the desired automation steps to run on the remote machine, right? So to install this Paramiko, right, we need to run pip3 install Paramiko, right? And once installed, it is ready to use in your Python script, right? So it is already installed in my machine. I will be using or importing this Paramiko, right? And we will be having one main, right? So if name is equal to main, then we will be executing our main function, right? And we need to define a main which will be running the set of actions, right? So let's create a wrapper. It we can do like normal non-objective oriented method as well, but I would like to demonstrate that how we can write objective oriented programming, uh, which will be wrapping the SSH Paramiko functionality, right? And we can expose the API, right, to be used in the main. So let's define a class which is SSH manager, right? So actually, what are the things SSH manager should have, right? One is the constructor in which we can pass the username and password, right? And it will be stored in the SSH manager context. And the context SSH manager object should contain the SSH context client context which is being provided by the Paramiko. Once that is done, we will be connecting to the SSH remote machine, right? So we will provide an API. So let's see what all the APIs it will be handling, right? It will have the constructor, it will be having the API connect, we will be having the execution, right? Once we connect, we need to execute command. We, as I said, we need to run some script files, or we need to copy some of the files to the remote machine, right? So we can have a copy file to remote, right? It will be having, we need to copy some files from the remote machine, right? So copy file from remote, and at the last we will be closing the SSH session, right? So we will be having the close. So this is the functionality which we will be going to have. So define init self none, right? So it will be having username and password, right? Now we need to have a, let's have self username username, and then self password. Now we will be having the SSH client context, right? So Paramiko provides an interface SSH client which will be used to fetch the SSH client context, and we will storing as a member variable, right? There is a once you log in into the remote host machine, if it is a new, right, you need to store those into the known host machine, right? So for that we need to provide a policy which is missing, set missing host key policy, and for that we need to just write paramiko dot add auto add policy, right? So this is the constructor which it looks like, and we will be having the define connect as we discussed. It will be having the argument of host name, right? We should have the host name for in which we are going to connect, right? We will add that later. We will be having a functionality of execute command, right? So this will be containing command. We will be define this, right? And we will be having, we discussed that define execute command and copy file to remote. Let's have a space, copy file to remote, and it will be containing, so copy file to remote. So this functionality, as I said, will copy the local file to the remote machine. So argument will be local file and the remote file, right? Next API will be copy file from remote, right? So I will be just renaming here from remote. So self comma, so this will copy the remote file from remote host machine to the local host machine. So we will be having the argument remote file and then local file, and last define close, right? So we will be having this self SSH close, and we will contain this, right? So with this we are going to close this. To copy file from remote, right? So we will be using the secure file transfer protocol. How we are going to do this? SFTP. So we have a self.ssh context. It will give SFTP, open SFTP. With this we will be having the SFTP context. Now we need to SFTP, we need to put, right? In SFTP, when we need to copy from the local to remote, we use put. So SFTP put, and then we need to provide the local file and then remote file. Once that is done, we will be having SFTP closed, right? We need to close it. It is done. Now for copying data from the remote host machine, right, we can copy this exactly the same. To get from the remote machine, right, so we use get in SFTP. We need to just switch between these two, get remote file to this local file. This functionality is being done by that, right? So we are good so far. Connect, how we are going to connect, right? So for this we will be having self SSH dot connect. So what are the things it requires? It requires the host name. We provided the host name. Username, we will be having the self username, right, which we stored in our constructor, and then self dot password. So self dot password. So this will be containing, oh okay, so with this we are going to connect with this SSH host machine, right? Let's see if our command run python. It was fine. There is an error. Define. There is an error. Line number 19. What is wrong here? Line files SSH miner. Okay, yeah. So now we will be having the execute command remaining, right? So yeah, let's do this. So to execute the command, right, what we need to do, we need to call some SSH context API, which will help us to run those commands, right? So there is an API self.ssh.execute command, right? It has that. If you see that it is having some value, what we are going to provide here, we are going to provide, we will be using join and then commands, which we have in our this. Let's do the commands. We will join and store. What it is, it returns tuple, right? It returns tuple of std error, and it returns channel file and channel standard file. So we will be having the standard error, standard in, and we will having out, and then std error. This is the return of this function. Now once we have it, right, we have run the executed the command. So now what we need to do, we need to do this output std out dot read. So what is the output of our command? Read, and then decode. So sorry, std out dot read, and we need to decode it to UTF-8, right? So we will be having this plus, if any error, right, if any error is there, so we will be same decode UTF-8 string std_ar. Okay, so this is the output, right? Now whenever any commands runs, right, it returns some exit code. So along with this output, we will be capturing the exit code as well. So how we will do it? We will be using std out, then channel dot receive exit status. So it will return what was the status in the stack, right? And we will be capturing it. Now we will be returning this both tuple exit code and the output. So this wrapper, I think, is ready. We are storing the context. We have the SSH context. We have the SSH missing host key policy. We are connecting. We are executing the commands. We are returning the exit code and the output. Now we have the interface copy file to remote from the local. We have the interface to copy file from the remote to the local, we have close, right? We have lots of things. Okay, yeah, then we are good. Now we are going to interact this SSH manager to our main, right? So how we are going to do, we need to define username, which will be having our username, and then we will be having the password, okay, and we will have the host name. Now we need to have the SSH manager object using the class SSH manager. We need to pass what? We need to pass username, we need to pass password. That's all, right? Now we have the SSH client contact, but we have not connected yet. So in SSH manager, we will be calling our connect API, and we will passing the host name, right? So once that is done, what we will be having some execute commands, right? So SSH manager execute commands. For example, we have a commands, what is that, cmds, and then we will be having just like who am I, right? It will return us the tuple, right? stt error code, and then output, it will be returning that to us. Now if error code, right, if error code is having some value, right, if exit status, then we will print a script or command executed successfully, else unsuccessful. Successful. So we will be throwing an error with that. All this is done. Now we need to copy the output. We will be printing output what we have received, and then we will be closing SSH manager, close the session, right? In final, right? So in finally we will be closing the SSL connection. Let's do this. If everything works fine, of course is not there in SSH machine, so we will be using ABC bus, no connection, unable to connect to port 122. So we don't have the SSH, so we need to provide. So yeah, with this it is going to work very well in your host machine. I can provide the password. So you need to provide the username, you need to provide the password, you need to provide the host name, and you need to provide the SSH manager context. For example, you have the SSH manager context here, and or object, you connect, you have the command list, right? You execute this command. So we have not parsed this command here, okay? It will return the error code. If error code is successful, then command executed successfully, else command execution unsuccessfully, full, print the output, and finally we are going to close this session. SSH manager, right? So with this we will be executing one command. The problem here is Paramiko is a stateless, right? It's a stateless command execution. For example, you have set or I will see demonstrate on something like that. If you went to the path, right, copy path, right, now what will happen if I do this pwd here, we execute this next command, right? What will happen, this pwd will not be containing this path, it will be containing the home directory, because as I said, it is a stateless. It will not go to the, it does not know what previous command runs, so it fires, it creates a new session and fires the command just a blind way, right? So that is a challenge, right? And we required some kind of the state, we should hold the some kind of the state. For that only, I have written the command file, copy files to remote and copy files from the remote, this. So how it is going to help us? So what we can do, we have connected to the system. Let's write our ss1 command, right? So we will be having the bin bash. So let's do this. We will be storing the file execute.sh, right? Okay, code touch execute.sh. Okay, and then we will be having bin bash. Now this will be containing all this state of the previous command. For example, we are going to go here, ct home, and then we do this pwd, it will print that. So we are going to write this to our file, right? I will say I'm going to redirect to the execute.log, right? I'm doing this. I will okay, so once the cd is done, I'm going to store the pwd path of the current part to the execute log. Then that's all, right? Let's close this, don't save. Okay, so now we will be having now command as our local remote file, right? We need to execute this remote file to the host machine. So how we are going to do that? We need to provide execute.sh, right? So with this, it will not run because it will say file not found, because we have not copied. So we need to copy. So let's do this. We remote file to, we will give this name execute.sh, remote local file log file. Okay, so execute.log remote log, right? So I can say this like that, remote log, right? And it is a local. Now I need to pass this here. So before that, executing the command, we need to copy SSH manager, copy file to remote. So we need to pass local file, which is execute sh, right? It is the same. we can do like that as well. Remote file to execute remote, and we can have a local file just to differentiate that which is running in the local and which is running in the remote. So remote local, we need to execute remote file, right? Remote, execute remote file. So this file, execute remote file, will be executing on remote. We need to copy local, right? So we will just replace this local. So sorry, we need to, I can use this move command, execute sh2 execute local, right? So it will copy okay, don't save. So it will copy the local file and put this local file to the remote host machine. Now we can execute this command, right? Now we are going to go do this, right? Remote log, we need to copy this from the remote log machine. So how we are going to do it? We are going to copy from remote. Once execution has been done from remote, so we will be having the local log file, right, from the remote log file. So copy file from the remote, which file? Remote log file to the local file. Execute remote, and we will be having this. Now we can read it, right? We can read this log file whatever we want. So with this, we will be having the state specific commands which we want to execute. Like it does not, it will not fire many sessions, right? For each command, we have a session which will be copying this SSH file to the remote, and with this we are creating another session, right? We are creating, so this is the one session, a copy file to remote, another session execute, right? So this will be running in the same session. If we want to set the environment, the set environment will be set, and based on that we will be copying the remote log files. So whatever is there, we can copy to our machine and see how the output was there and what the log file got generated in the remote machine. So I can go to this, go through again. Install the Paramiko using the pip, and then create a SSH manager class, right? You can name your name by your convenience, right? Whatever you want it to name it to your class. Basically it will be performing this set of the operations or exposing the API to the client, which is like client is main in our case. So it will be having the constructor, it will provide the connect API, and it is providing the API to execute command in the remote, copy file to remote, copy file from remote to local machine, and then at last we are providing the API to close, right? In it we have given the username password to store this to use in the connect, right? So you can see that we are using self username here. You can if it is not required, right, we can do this as well. That username password we can pass it here, right, and connect, right, whatever we wanted to have, just like having this in a session of a constructor of in a SSL context. I'm just giving here you can do here as well. Having the SSH Paramiko client context to the self SSH, and adding this policy set missing host keep policy to using the auto add policy. Once construction is done, right, once construction is done, in connect we are just using as self SSH, which we have created here, using the connect API of SSH, passing host name, username and password. Once that is done, I'm executing the command, giving the API execute command, which will join the commands with a space execute. So this command will be executing the on the remote host machine, and it will return the triplets to us, which is std in just for like it will require the input from the customer application or consumer, or like application users, right? Std out, like what this given as an output. If there is an error, then it will return the error into the std error. So now we are capturing this std out read decode. So in a UTF-8 we are appending standard error read to this previous one, and concatenating all those string to the output. We are capturing the exit code, which will being fetched by the std out channel dot receive exit status. We are returning exit code and output from this API. We are opening the SFTP secure file transfer protocol, and we are putting. So from putting put is used from to file transfer from local machine to the remote put, right? From if we want to copy the file from the remote to the local, so we will use get. So this is the same API, same set of the code, but we are just replacing put to the get, right? As I said, close, we are calling the self.ssh.close. So we have this wrapper in our system ready. Now in main we will be passing the username, password, host machine, SSH manager, will be passing the username and password. Give your host name and password if you know your username and what is the password of you when you log into the SSH, right? Call this connect API, which will be, we are passing host name. We are defining execute remote SSH will be converting to the like we are just replacing name kind of, right? So execute remote will run on the remote host machine. Local is like we have stored this local file which we need to copy to the remote, and the remote log file, once this command is executing using the SSH command which we are having here, it will generate the log file, right? So we need to copy that remote log file to our local log files, right? So execute remote log file, we are copying. So once this command is being executed, copy file to remote, we are executing this SSH in a remote host machine, and then capturing the error code. Based on that, we are just printing that command got succeeded or it got failed. We are copying the log file. Once command is generated, like executed, of course it has generated the log file. So we are trying to generate the get the log file from the local remote host machine to the local, printing out this output which we have received here, and finally we are closing it. So this is the API Paramiko API functionality, how we use it to automate this. I hope you liked my videos. Let me know in your comment how you felt about it, and if you have any questions, I will be happy to solve your issues, or I can guide you that is there any what kind of issue you are facing. Stay tuned. Thank you so much. Bye bye.